Okay, rail fans, train guy here again, and first little look today at TGV LGV Méditerranée. I'm not even going to really try and pronounce that one. So going to do a there and back run. All the bells and whistles turned on. Keep it nice and simple, nice spring morning to start with, and we'll be taking the 902 to Paris. Let's just jump straight in. Do, 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 do. Right, so let's oh, so many loading screens. Right, so Marseille to Avignon. Don't actually know if this one stops or not. Don't find out till we start the service. So we'll just jump in. Check the timetable. So we're stopping at Aix-en-Provence. Let's just get the doors open. On the left there. Everything goes into sort of testy mode type thing. Now let's see if I can remember how to do all this, because I'm still learning it all. So the pantograph's down, and in AC mode we want to put it into DC. Don't think it actually matters too much if you do that first or not. Oh, I want to just put it up into normal, and then we should, yeah, reset the circuit breaker. All those little lights go out, and we're good to go. Get the gauge lights on, and the fun stoppers are all behind us here. So we're going to turn on TVM, which is for the high speed line, KVB, which only really affects us for a tiny little bit, and VACMA. And that's it, we're basically ready to go. I'm not going to bother doing the brake tests because that's really complicated. Let's just see if this is oh, this is a double unit as well. This is a 20 cars. Well, it's 16 carriages and 4 power units altogether. Oh, last thing we need to remember to do before we try and move off, or nothing will happen. Set the driving mode into manual control. Here's the desk light switch if you need it. And that's the headlight dimmer. Oh, time to lock the doors. Now, actually, the door lights are up here. You can press that one in the middle to close them both, that'll work as well. So just confirm you've got a green, and we'll let the brakes out. And put the power on. Takes a wee minute just to get going. It's not the punchiest of trains off the line. Once we're moving, it's okay though. Just make sure we observe the speed limit, because we've got KVB, I think it's called, is switched on. That little panel on the left with the orange 0 on it give you a kicking if you go more than 5 kilometers above the speed limit. Shouldn't give us any problems on the way out, but it can trip you up on the way back into Marseille if you're not expecting it. VACMA will probably ring at some point shortly. It's just, VACMA's just French SIFA, basically. So I'm using my keyboard obviously to do some of these controls. Headlights, they can only be on, they can be in the normal or the reduced. I think you're supposed to run them at normal, but switch them to reduced if something's coming the other way so you don't blind the driver. So these are the sort of the classic lines, the normal lines just leaving Marseille. We're only on them for a very, very short time. And then we will move off onto the LGV, the high-speed line. Probably think about getting back in the cab just to make sure I know what that upcoming signal is telling me. It's fine, all clear. Excuse me, right, so once we're up to 140-ish, let's pick it up a little bit further, we can just coast, just put power into the off position. We can actually coast pretty much from here to the power changeover point now. Which is where we need to switch from the DC overheads to the 25,000 kilovolt LGV overheads, the ones for the mega juice, the go fast lines. So about 2 kilometres out, starting to get ready because that'll pass a lot quicker than you think it will. Click the circuit breaker twice just to disconnect the power from the train. Lower the pantograph as we go into this tunnel. Switch the pantograph mode over to LGV. Now at this point, if you're lost, there's VACMA. It's an idea to flick the... You could put the desk light on before you go into the tunnel so you can see it. Keep the pantograph down for now because it needs to stay down until we've actually passed the changeover location, but this happens in a wee tunnel, so you probably do want the desk lights to be on just so you can see what's going on here. And don't worry about the little dive downhill as well. As long as you go in here around 135, you're golden. So that's, once you pass that signal inside the tunnel, there's a little board on the wall just ahead of it that that's fine. It tells you it's time to put the pantograph up. So once it's up, just reset the breaker like so. And we now have power. Now TVM's come on, so the other thing I'm going to do is I'm now going to switch to selected speed mode. And our selected speed, I'm going to put up to 300. So that's where the little twiddly thing for it is. From here on out, I am going to be using the keyboard controls to do it. So it's now started flashing. What it's telling me is the next block is the next speed limit down from 300, which is 270. It's because we're actually approaching Provence. The speed limits in the blocks are coming down as we go through them, but we're starting off quite slow. So it's going to take a while to get through. So now it comes down to 270. So the limit is 270 but reducing further. The next one down is 230. And then from 230 it goes to 200, then from 200 it goes to, that's just VACMA. 200 it goes to 170. There is a 160 setting as well, but for our purposes it's going to just reduce to 0 after the 170. So next reduction to 230, and you have to be at it by the time you pass the next TVM flag. So I'm just going to actually take the power out there because the next drop is going to be to, I think, 200, and then it will drop to 170. So there's no point trying to get it way up to stupid speeds just yet. So that's now telling me reduced to 170. The distance to the signal marker in the top right there, where there's usually a signal mast, that's where the TVM flags are, instead of signals out on this route. You see the blue square board with the orange triangle flag on it, that's the TVM markers. So 3 kilometres out, and we're going down a fairly steep hill, so you do quite often have to just give it a bit of air just to help it on the hills. If you go more than 5k above the speed limit under TVM, it intervenes, and it's recoverable. But the first time it happens to you, you'll probably stop completely at it. So we're just going to give it a bit more brake because we're actually only 1.5 kilometres out. At this train, I actually find the we're locking the wheels a little bit. You'll see over on the left the desk, the brake gauge goes 0 up through 6. That's actually easier to use than the little gauges on the HUD. Once you sort of get used to what the braking forces at the various pressures are. So TVM telling us now that stop by the next flag. We're not actually going to go beyond it, but we do have to go up more or less to the very end of the platform with a double header. Otherwise the tail end will be hanging off. See, there's the stopping board just on the left there, so more or less perfect. Hey! Bang! Don't know why the power mode thing flashes up here at this point, but it does. So don't actually have a huge amount of time for getting out and going for a wander. We'll do that up at the. We'll do that at Avignon. Avignon. Outside while we're waiting. I mean, it's the usual thoroughly lovely looking machine. Presumably means don't touch unless you know what you're doing. Oh, locky. So there's your door controls there, middle one to lock them up. You've got little light switches down here as well if you need them in the dark. Oh, did I leave that light on? I did. We don't need that. So, speed selector up. Brakes out. They're released when the needle reaches 5. This gauge here is the big brake gauge I was talking about before. So TVM's cleared us up to 170. We'll click over to 300 more or less straight away. So before this route, the fastest that we'd been in Train Sim World was 250 kilometers per hour, about 150, 160 miles an hour or something like that. No, it's about 140, let me think. Yeah, it'd be about 160 something. So, TGV, we're going to be going up to 320 kilometers per hour, which is, give or take, 200 miles an hour. And it is a fairly hands-on train. You do have to actually drive it, because some of these gradients that they throw the TGV up down, the electric brakes on the road don't always do very well at very, very, very high speeds. Here's one of those steep uphills, and it's toiling. and then whee! Suddenly we're going down one. Just making sure we're still awake. So just always ready just to give it a little burst of air on these downhill sections, because the electric brake, it'll try. Just sometimes just a little touch is all you need. See next to the big red 300 in the middle of the desk there, there's a little arrow bouncing up and down. That's an accelerometer basically. So you can see just what effect your brakings have quite effectively. And as you come back off the slope, just let the brakes out. If it's a steep downhill and you're letting the brakes out, you might sometimes want to take the power handle off, because it's a funny system and it occasionally just gives a burst too much power if you've left the handle in full on a downhill. So I think one more sort of viaducty bridge thing to cross and then we hit the 300. 320 zone. And there's TVM going up to 320, so increase accordingly. Quite a steep uphill, so again it's going to toil a little bit, but you'll launch yourself onto them at such high speed. The train just carries itself up and over. Just always be aware to keep an eye open for the TVM flags coming up, because you can't rely on the line speed limit display on the screen up there to tell you what's going on exactly. Do what TVM tells you. Even if you've got it switched off, the display will still be on the centre of the dash there, those green numbers. It'll all still work the same way. It just won't put the brakes on if you don't have the switch on isolated. A little bit of air because we're suddenly going down a very steep hill. So mostly your job along this stretch is going to just be to respond to VACMA when it goes. I've not done enough of them yet to know if there's any sort of variation in what you're likely to run up against ahead of you or anything like that. I've seen one service where there was another one ready to go just behind me, so there might be some sort of signalling or something in some of them. But basically, whenever you pass a TVM flag here, be ready to respond to TVM telling you something. If it starts to flash, it means get down to the next marked speed, which would be 300. And if it does nothing, you're fine. You don't need to actually acknowledge it or do anything other than be on the brakes and get down to the speed it wants you to by the time you reach the next TVM flag. As we approach Avignon, we'll get a demonstration of TVM counting us down through the speed blocks. I think as we approach Avignon there is another sort of 300k stretch for a little while, and then it starts to slow us down as we get closer. Let's go back into Marseille that gets interesting, because you have to remember to switch off your speed set and all that kind of stuff, and it's dead easy to... There's a lot going on in a very short space of time on the way back into to Marseille, and it can get all very confusing very quickly. I can't remember exactly where it is, but I am half expecting the first sort of slowdown to happen fairly soon. Mr. Gamer Power, yo, hello, welcome to the stream, mate. Good to see you. Just having a little play with the new TGV pack here. Not quite sure what the significance of the purple flags as opposed to the blue and orange ones is. It doesn't seem to make any practical difference though. Tell you what, this thing does not half eat up the distance. Right, so there's TVM telling me to get down to 300, so I'm going to plug some air in because the electric brakes aren't so great at this speed. You've got about 1.5 kilometres to get down to 300 at that point. The limit is 320, but the flashing tells me it's reducing in the next block. So now we're in the next block and it's not expecting us to reduce any further. The light stops flashing. Had that continued to flash, it would have told me to prepare for 270 kilometres by the next marker flag, and so on and so forth. You can leave the power switched on because that's telling it how much electric braking power to give as well. That's absolutely fine, but you will need to use air brakes to keep up with this. So it's continuing to flash, so in fact that's telling me to continue reducing the speed. So the current max is 270, but I need to be at 230, I think it is, by the next flag. Continues to flash, then we'll reduce to 230, to 200. There is a thing you can find on the internet, a table of the TVM speeds, and I assume it's going to be in the manual, and that appears on Steam as well. I think the TVM speeds are in the Train Sim World. One, like not the Train Sim World 1, the Train Sim 20, whatever it was. So 200 is still flashing, so down to 170. Yeah, I think if you can find the Train Sim 20, whatever it was, manual for the TGV, it's got the TVM speeds in it as well. So there we are, TVM has us locked in at 170 now. The line speed is still 300 odd, maximum permitted, but we're slowing down for a station, which is not very far away at all. Dropped the brake pressure to about 4. So we're going back up a hill again. So the flashing TVM thing is warning me that I need to be prepared to slow down further. It's going to tell us to stop actually. As we enter the station, it'll turn red. Show a bunch of zeros, that means do not pass the next flag. So I've put the speed set to 0, but it's not actually going to affect the electric braking unless I then apply some power to the electric brakes, which at the moment I've not, coming in entirely on the airs. And because it's a double header, we're going to go right up to the end of the platform so we can fit everything on, and then we'll turn it round. Well, we'll not literally turn it around, we'll need to take a new service, and we'll oh, I might have been a bit enthusiastic on my brakes there, and we want to pull up just, I mean we want to go pretty far to the end. We want to go up to the flag on the right is not for us. We want to go up to the TV, see the TGV stop sign there on the left? We want to stop just roughly alongside that. I'm not going to wander too far because I'll need to nip back and close the doors, I think, to don't step on the yellow line or you'll die, or something like that. So there's the lower class. There's no door up either end. There's only one door into most of these coaches, I've noticed. I don't know if it's it's different classes or something. Some of the upstairs cabins seem to have exceptionally swanky upholstery compared to their downstairs account. Or was it the downstairs one? It was one I was in that, like, one was really, really posh, and the other one was a bit not so much. Maybe it was the bottom one actually that was the posh one, and I think I liked it. Right, so we'll just get the doors locked up. That's obviously as far as the route goes, westbound or northbound. Excusez-moi. En français. Right, great, marvellous. So it's just over half an hour if you've got the stop at Aix-en-Provence. So we'll do one more and then I'm off to get some grub before the actual proper launch stream later on, which I'll be watching. Okay, so we want to go back 3. Let's do. Can't remember what I had it set to. Was it spring or summer I had the last one set to? I don't know, does the south of France turn brown in the autumn and winter? Or do they not have like trees that are green all the time? I honestly don't know. I've not been to the south of France at the right time of year to know these things. We'll just stick with spring, I think. We'll make it cloudy though. Let's make it rainy. What could possibly go wrong? Let's make it an autumn rainy day. Chuck a bit more on, we'll give it a bit more cloud. A little bit of wind. And we'll just take the next one going back to Marseille that's available. So 9:30, so this will be one of the ones we actually passed on the way back, on the way out here rather. Hello Nathan Willoughby, welcome. I think I've done one or two. I tend to just do what I feel like doing at the time, to be honest with you. I do want to go back and look at Sandpatch though, because some of the stuff that was broken and buggy and caught me out in earlier attempts has been fixed, and I have actually redone the one I tried to do with the coal and have you. I've checked that everything works now, so at some point I probably will, but I'm afraid I don't really do timetables and schedules and stuff. Very unreliable and only pop up when I feel like and when I have the time, which is not very often that I have both together. Right, so we're going to just jump straight back in here, and it's 20 cars long, so this is another double set. Also stop it. I was hoping to get a straight through one that didn't stop at Axe, but I don't know which or which yet. So we'll unlock the doors, and pantograph should already be in LGV mode. Let's just pop it up. Oh, we need to double dump the circuit breaker. I think something's gone wrong actually here. Something feels like it's gone wrong. That's better. So let's turn the TVM on. And KVB. And VACMA. Close the door. Not actually sure where the wiper controls are. I've just been using my keyboard to do it. And we're going to be setting off under selected speed this time because we're already at the fast end of the line. And there's the desk light button if you need it for the for fiddling about with the pantograph controls in the dark. You need to remember you're coming up on the tunnel though. Not all these switches, I mean all these switches do stuff. I wouldn't recommend playing about with them though unless you know exactly how to undo what you did. Which is not me. Not yet, I've not figured all this stuff out yet. The manual doesn't tend to appear until later on in launch day, so let's just lock the doors up. We'll set the speed selector now. And everything looks good. Speed set. Brakes release and power in. And very slowly off we go. Full power rate in the snow and the train has come to stop and won't move. Pass. If you've got trailing locomotives, you need to remember to turn your banking comm on or they won't give you a push. The only other thing I can suggest is sand, I'm afraid. I have not done a great deal of winter running at all in the American stuff. It frightens me. The banking comm buttons on the telephone radio looking thing doesn't work in one of the locomotives either. It doesn't work in the brand new one for some reason. I think that's on their to fix list. So there's TVM's cleared us up to 300. VACMA checking in on us as well. Love the horn on this. No idea what the French regulations are on the use of the horn, but I like pressing it. I think that train we just passed is probably the one, I think it's the one we just we brought in. No, it can't be. It's too early. I think we passed the one we just drove about halfway down. Am I on Xbox? No, Nathan, I'm on PlayStation 4, original model. in theory everything should be the same on the two consoles. The only thing I can't tell you is what buttons to press on an Xbox controller, because I don't know what the A, B, X, Y buttons are. I always get the Nintendo ones in my head. But functionally anything I can do on PlayStation you should be able to recreate on an Xbox, no problem. That includes the full keyboard support as well, I believe. It all works on the Xbox version. Only thing that the console now doesn't support is a mouse. So there's TVM taking us up to 320. Let's just push the lever all the way up. At this speed, the only thing I can do with the drone camera really is to do a run by. I cannot. The train is now going faster than the camera can move, so I can't really do any running external cameras other than the ones that are attached to the train, like the boom camera, front and rear cameras. But the actual this one, I can't keep up with the train at this speed. The camera maxes out somewhere around 200, I think. Well, it won't be tonight, I'm afraid, mate, because that's a really, really long route and I don't have the time. I've got maybe about another 20-25 minutes tops. I'm just going to bang this one in. But like I said, I have got some. I do want to look at Sandpatch again. It's just a question of finding an afternoon where I've got a few hours to spare to do it. But I do want to have a look at especially the big heavy coal trains again, so it probably will appear at some point, man, but I'm afraid it's not going to be today, I'm sorry. Lots of these bridges and viaducts and things along the route. When they built it, they decided to make it go as straight as possible. I mean, it still does follow curves and bends and things because it has to avoid some stuff. But the idea was to, rather than go round the terrain, was just to go over it as much as they could. They didn't have to worry about heavy freight trains or things on these lines. They were only ever going to be for fast, light passenger trains, so comparatively light. So you get these big roller coaster hills up and down. You get these big bridges and viaducts where you just went, keep going in a straight line. Where, you know, traditional railway building might have dictated we'll follow the riverbank to a point where we can build a short, cheaper crossing. Nope. Just keep building over it. Keep going. You don't want, if you want to be doing 200 miles an hour, is you do not want lots of tight bends and corners. Hills are easier to cope with in a fast train. Even if it's a steep hill that it can't quite maintain its speed on, if you chuck it at the hill fast enough, sheer momentum will carry it over. Even if you cut the power halfway up. it does make a great fun line to drive. Another one of these big steep hills going up. It's toiling, just it's not quite got enough traction to hold the speed, but yeah, there's a sander in the most of the cabs. Just hold the button down. It may or may not help. It takes ages for the brakes to release on some of those trains as well, so sometimes you do have to wait for quite a while for it to get moving again. Especially if you're on an uphill, that is such a pain in the backside to get moving again. Under normal circumstances, I've not actually tried it on the snow. The steepest start I've done is, oh, hang on, there's TVM blinking at me, so it's time to reduce to the next speed, which is 300. And you've got 1.5 kilometres, but that's not that far when you're travelling at these speeds. You do have to give it a generous handful of air to make sure you keep to these limits. So it stopped flashing, so the block speed is 300, not needing to slow down anymore. We're just juggling it on the brakes a little bit while we deal with the last of this downhill gradient. 3.5% is just a little bit much for the electric brake to manage by itself. Come off the bottom of the hill, just release the brakes a bit. Yeah, so there is sand. We'll drop sand under the lead locomotive, which is sometimes all you need. But the only uphill starts I've really done on sand patch have been the ones where you start in the west end on I think it's like a 0.5% or a 1% incline. It's not the full. I don't think you're supposed to stop on that hill, to be honest. I think if you get stuck on that hill, you're pretty much done for the day. It'll depend on the locomotive you're driving as well, to be honest. The GPs are going to really toil in those conditions with heavy trains, I think, whereas the ACs, the two with the big comfort cabs, they're going to do a little bit better than the GP and the ST. Oh, panic hit the brake there when that alarm went on. But hey, that's half the fun of Train Sim World, man, is figuring out what the hell went wrong and how to fix it. Lordy knows I've spent long enough doing that. So we're getting 15 kilometres for max on Provence. Sounds like a long way, but again, we're doing ridiculous speeds, so do expect TVM to begin intervening some way out. to kick in very shortly. CSX 218. I think that's a service number, mate. That's not the locomotive type. Like I say, if you're in a GP, if the ST40 and the GP38 were the two we got with that, if you're in one of them, you could be struggling, man. And it's not through no fault of your own. They're easy enough to get stuck. I really don't like using the GP and the ST for anything that's not yard work, if I'm being honest. So there's TVM flashing again, so it's wanting us down to 270. We're going down quite a steep hill as well here, so fairly vigorous with the brakes. Like I did say earlier on, this is quite a hands-on train. And we've lost traction because of the wet. Continues to flash, will then reduce further to, I think it's 230 is next. $230. What kind of grade is 3.5? It's TGV grade, mate. I was just talking about this a few minutes ago. The French approach to high-speed railways was don't go round the terrain, just carry on over it as much as possible. So it's still flashing at 230, down to 200 next. Oh, it's now gone up. It's 270, it's current speed, so it's going to be 230 in the next block. We must be following something. If I understand the system rightly, we're about to find out if I do or not, because I think that means the next speed's going to be... Yeah, there we go. So 230. If the 230 is flashing, we need to get down to 200. So I think we might be cheekily following something. Ah, now, we did see two trains pass each other fairly close by on the last route, so... Yeah, I think we are maybe following something reasonably close. Because as soon as the train ahead of you starts slowing down for Provence, you're going to start eating up that distance really fast. So the 200's flashing, it wants us down to 170 by the next flag. We're going uphill as well, so we can actually let the brakes out kind of early. Still not quite nailed the braking on this, and it's quite a sluggish train to respond. So the 170, the only other thing it can be below 170 is 160, which is not going to be in this case, I don't think, because this is going to actually... it can either go to 160 or it can go to stop by the next flag. They're the only two variations on it that I can find. So I think this is going to go to stop. Which it does. And the next flag, of course, is just at the end of the platform. So we're a kilometre and a bit out. Start reducing the speed. Oh, this could be a bit tricky. Giving it more power to give it more electric brake. It sounds very counterintuitive when you first start using it, and it kind of is. Oh, I think we're going to have an overshoot. Oh, balls, balls, balls. Oh, we're going to have a spad. Fuck. Oh well. There we go. First time driving it in the wet. That was a stupid idea to do that on the stream. Ah well, c'est la vie, ain't it? Right, well, that's probably where I'm just going to end it because I was only going as Marseille, which is only about another 10k down the line, and I don't really have time to start all that over again, I'm afraid. Um, so, yeah, that was a quick look at the TGV Méditerranée, all the way there, most of the way back, until I got cocky. Uh, so, lessons learned today. Brake early with this thing. It is really not very responsive at all. At all. Hey Samson, good to see you, man, but I'm afraid I'm just wrapping it up after a spad about 10 minutes earlier than I was intending to finish anyway. Um, the short version is I quite enjoyed it. I buggered it up at the end. Um, is it worth 25 quid? That's up to to each person playing it. If you don't like fast electric trains, probably not. Do I think it's worth 25 quid? Well, I'll get, well, actually 22 quid if you're a PlayStation Plus subscriber. Um, I'll easily get my 22 quid's worth out of it. So for me, yeah, I like fast electric trains. I like this. If you don't like that, you probably won't like this. Um, it's complicated. I would advise watching, if you've not seen it, watching the preview stream from Tuesday, um, because Matt Pedalston goes through all the startups and things, a lot of the stuff that I glossed over because I don't know how to do it yet. But it's really good. It's as complicated as an ICE3, but in different ways, I would say. Um, it's a bit less punishing in some ways and a bit less forgiving in other ways. But yeah, it's good. I enjoyed that. But I'm going to have to end this one here because I really am running out of time. So hopefully it'll not be too long before I'm back, and catch you guys soon. Thanks very much. Cheery, bye.